Hello, welcome back to Talking Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm James, and I'm joined by Roger today from Gallagher Shots. We're going to talk about the upcoming game against Newcastle. Certainly one which I think we're both very nervous about for massively different reasons, and one I am personally could really do without. But moving on, here we are. Roger, obviously Newcastle having a really, really good season. Had a couple of peaks and troughs, I suppose, but on the whole has been really, really good, obviously. How would you kind of sum up the season so far for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's just been ridiculous. I mean, summed up by the result, obviously, at the weekend against Tottenham, where that was everything that is the best in Newcastle at the minute. And after having so many years of like abject nothingness, like to have this season, well, the back end of last season and then this season has just been crazy. Pinch yourself because it's like dreamland, really. But yeah, it's been good. Like a lot of players have performed really well, like Joe Linton, Almiron, even Murphy recently. So it's been, we've had a couple of setbacks. You know, the Villa game, the two games against Liverpool, which were a bit self inflicted. But no, I would never complain about a season like this. It's just been astonishing, really astonishing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be fair, I've not really been looking at the top end of the table much this season. A bit like last year, bit more boring last year, but I hadn't quite realised how good, obviously, Newcastle were doing. Brighton, Villa, teams like that. Obviously,
Yeah,
knew they're having good seasons, but in terms of like the points total, where they actually are on the table, who's where,
yeah,
all that, I've not really been that bothered about it. To be fair, I'm
yeah,
sure there's quite a few Everton fans who are like that, but. Absolutely. I mean, obviously Eddie Howe came in. He's someone who I don't think he was ever actually linked to Everton in terms of. I don't think anyone at the club was looking at him at
mm,
different times. I think he was someone the fans discussed at different times.
yeah,
Remember when he was first at Bournemouth, or not first at Bournemouth, sorry, but when he was at Bournemouth and they were in the Premier League, and we moved on Roberto Martinez. Remember he was mooted as someone. I don't think anything happened there. So he's certainly someone who's been discussed a couple of times. And I don't know whether it's true, but there were rumours he was an Everton fan or is an Everton fan.
yeah. I've heard
Um,
that. Yeah, that he's. I think his dad used to follow Everton or something. There's a link there somehow.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
a
it
he's an
always
Everton
struck me
fan.
as a bit of a weird one that. Yeah, I was never quite
Yeah,
sure, but either way, he's at Newcastle. I have to say, I did not. I mean, I don't think anyone thought it was going to be this good this quickly, but I certainly didn't think it was ever going to be this good under him. If I'm being totally honest, but I
yeah.
mean, it's just shocked everyone, really, hasn't it? Even if you were happy with it, I think you probably wouldn't have thought it'd be this good.
No, I think most most fans would have been sort of expecting around, given the momentum from last season and the knowledge that would probably spend some, we've spent money in the summer. You'd be looking at like 10th, and maybe if we get in the Conference League or the at the stretchy Europa League, have a bit of a cup run. I think probably most fans that I'd speak to, and probably the lads on the channel that we have, like that was kind of what our expectation was. But at the back end of last season, if you remember, like West Ham were kind of in that, it always seems that fourth position is like, it's almost like nobody wants it. It's great,
Mm.
as you get towards the back end of the season, West Ham were flirted with it, Tottenham flirted with it, Arsenal flirted with it, and they all seem to just be like, no, after you, Gerald, after you. Like it was crazy. And I said on a couple of our podcasts, given what happened with Leicester when they won the league, I never thought we were going to win the league, obviously, but they finished the season with so much momentum and it just carried on into the next season. And like I said on one of our final podcasts at the end of the season, I was like, we should aim for fourth. Like you might as well, because it's like nobody ever wants that position. Now, I was never convinced that it would happen, but I was like, that's what we should be aiming for, because momentum is an amazing thing. As you guys, know towards the back end of last season with Lampard, that the crowd, the momentum, the feeling was there that like something good was coming. But Jesus, I couldn't have predicted what's happened. So, and I get the feeling of not watching match of the day, and you never really know what's happening with the other teams in the league, like because you're so obsessed and focused on the plight that you're in, that we were in for most seasons under Mike Ashley. Like, so I have a lot of I can feel your I can empathise with you on that one, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a thing that I mean, I know what the results are. I know how teams are getting on, but I mean, I'm looking at it and I say I don't know what kind of points totals I hear. Some of the teams on like 60 points, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good anymore. I don't know if that's bad. I don't know. It's one of them.
Yeah.
It is horrible, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's not nice. So we can both obviously feel something there. But
Yeah.
obviously we've got to mention Anthony Gordon as much as I
Yeah.
don't particularly want to. Um, obviously, I mean, I think when he was at Everton, he was very much liked by the fan base. I think the fans really took to him, and to be fair, I
Yeah.
think he took to Everton as well. It was very much a mutual thing. And then I felt last summer things went a bit weird because he
Yeah.
had offers from a couple of teams. He didn't go. There was never really any rumours that he wanted to go or that he was forcing it through or anything like that. I think people just wanted us to get money for him because
Yeah.
as much as we liked him, I don't think he showed loads last season. That's probably true,
Mm.
but I thought it was a
Yeah.
bit weird. He then played really well the first sort of few games after that, but since sort of maybe October time, maybe even September, he hasn't done anything really for Everton or for Newcastle in terms
Yeah.
of at the top end of the pitch. I just think he's got on since he signed because obviously he's a big talking
Yeah, I
point.
mean he's not pulled up any trees. He's not, he's not being great. I don't think he hasn't been bad either. He's just kind of, you can see that he's just fitting in with. I think he's gone from. I mean, obviously, I don't know Everton intimately, so I don't know. But you would, be able to sort of help us with that side of it. But I feel like he's gone from a quite an unstable environment where there's stuff going on. It's honestly it's copy and paste with what the kind of state we were in, where there's no communication between the board and the fans, and no understanding, and a bit like with Tottenham, like there's that then seeps down to the team, and there's no like cohesion between the players. Nobody knows what's going on, and I think maybe he's coming into Newcastle's environment where it's very stable, very settled, very consistent, and I think Eddie Howe's a consistent type of person. Um, I think he's just kind of we've been able to just bleed him into the team, gradually. He hasn't really started that many games. He's made a few, fairly impressive cameos. He spat his dummy out, which I'm sure you guys have seen when we played Brentford. But I don't have a massive problem with that. Like in the world of social media, these things get blown out of proportion. Like if a player's happy to go off, then you've got a problem. If he's pissed off that he's being subbed, then I don't really see the problem, you know what I mean? So I think we've got some good old heads around him. And I mean, if we're going to talk about whether he should play this game, I would absolutely not play him in this game at all. I wouldn't start him. I think it would just get the hackles up of the Everton fans and create that atmosphere, which I think your players would feed off, and that would give you an advantage over us, I think, personally. But he's been okay. He's been okay.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think I'd probably agree. To be fair, I'm not sure he'd get in the team at the minute anyway, obviously, but
Right.
I don't know. Even if the results maybe confirmed, shall we say, by towards the end, and he gets brought, and I think even that could end badly. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see. But I mean, it's one of them. If I was confident about this game, I'd be quite happy with him playing, and I'm sure he wouldn't enjoy it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't really want another little battle like that. I think on the pitch,
Yeah.
but very good.
Why do you
Obviously,
think? Why do you think he got such like? Because I mean, there was. I know every. I mean, we've got horse punchers, so I can't really speak much for fans. But like, why did he get? They were stopped him in the street after a game in his car and roadblock. They put out some. These divvies put out a little block for him. Like, why? What happened to that relationship? Like,
I mean, I think I say I thought it was quite weird, and I think it's fair to say that I think there was some parts of it were quite strange. I think with the one after the Southampton game, I don't think that was particularly targeted. I think fans were annoyed with him because he gave away the free kick, which led to the goal, and
right,
he'd come
right,
on and he hadn't done anything basically until he half-arse ran back, and then he fouled whoever it was. I can't remember.
yeah,
I went to the toilet after he gave it away and just heard it went in when I was in the stadium because I knew I didn't want to watch it happen. But yeah, I think that was why they were so frustrated with him at the time. But I think with the car thing, I mean, there was a couple of players. I think Ellis Sims was another one who was on loan
yeah,
at Sunderland, obviously this season. Who there was a video of him getting stopped as well. So I do think that was probably more bad luck. But I think
right,
by then
yeah,
the fans were probably finished with him. And to be fair, he was probably finished with Everton. I think that was it was quite a mutual thing by the end. So
yeah,
but you get people who are gonna do whatever in a fan base, and I
yeah,
wouldn't say all the fans are um would kind of join in with that, but I do think he is largely quite disliked, which
Yeah, yeah.
is one of those things. But
That's
we'll see
football.
how we
That's
get on.
football, isn't it? Though it's like the fickle world, isn't it? Football, like, but
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's I say I think if you told me May last year or April last year that was going to happen, I would have been very, very surprised. So I say it's one of them. Like it's just
yeah,
funny how these things work out.
yeah, definitely.
Obviously, I mean, it feels like an absolute age since we played Newcastle because I think it was pre-World Cup, wasn't it? So I've
Yeah,
watched a lot of football since then. I can't even really remember the game. It was quite a forgettable contest from what I remember. I think
yeah.
Newcastle obviously won 1-0.
Mm,
Almiron scored. That was pretty much all she wrote, really. But what have your
yeah.
thoughts been on Everton this season from the bits I'm sure you have probably tuned into?
Yeah, I mean the games I've seen, I actually watched. 'Cause I live over in Canada now, so you get all the 3 o'clock games, and we didn't have a game on the weekend. Sorry, on the Saturday. So I was like, oh, I'll just watch. So I was kind of flicking between a couple of them, and I quite like watching, Crystal Palace. I like some of their younger players like Alicia and who's the other kid?
As
Ake, is it? Eze, that's it. Yeah, like they've got some really good players. So I thought, and obviously we're playing Everton, so I thought I'll watch Everton. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think I was trying to not be, I was trying to look at it as if I was an Everton fan kind of thing, and look, right, it's an away game. A point away from home is always good, So from that standpoint, I think, and Dyche hasn't won many away games with Burnley or with Everton. So I thought actually maybe it's a one, an outs each. You've gone down to 10 men. It looks like a good result, but watching the play, like it was very direct. I don't know whether you've noticed that is that Dyche's my understanding of Dyche has been he's a bit of an old fashioned long ball type of merchant. Now I might be being unfair to him there, but that was what it looked like Crystal Palace were trying to play, a bit more on the floor and a bit more, possession based, whereas Everton were like trying to get a forward to Calvert Lewin and get off the scraps off him. So
Mm.
yeah, though that's kind of the impression that I've had the last few times I've watched Everton. But I think the good thing with Dyche, although I'm not a massive fan of his, but like you would hope he's always organised. The players are going to hopefully run through a brick wall for him, which maybe Lampard wasn't. He wasn't organised and he wasn't getting the best out of those players. But I mean, yeah, that was my latest impression of Everton. That I think if we can deal with that pressure of the long ball or pressure of the winning that first ball and then where the knockdowns go, and I think we hopefully can cope with it. But then you throw in the atmosphere. It's Goodison, and that can be a game changer, as you guys probably know better than me.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it was a. I mean, you chose a bad game to watch. Put it that way from both sides. To be fair, I think both of us and Palace were quite poor on the weekend. I
Yeah,
think to be fair, I mean it is quite direct, but I mean the only chance we had in the second half was from a massive kick from Pickford, which was headed down because I think Calvert-Lewin puts a bit of pressure on the defender, and then he got put through. So that was kind of the only chance in the second half we had, the only clear cut chance we had all game really,
yeah,
or certainly half chance anyway. But you just imagine that's what it's been like the last few weeks, but we've not had Calvert-Lewin up there. It's been pumped up to Neil Mopey, who is like 5'6", isn't he? So
yeah,
he's not been able to even do that or even put that kind of pressure on. So it's not been pretty. But I'd certainly say I think a lot of Everton fans would say that the football we played under Lampard was also terrible because it was
right,
just so pedestrian, so lackluster, so tepid. It was just really poor. And I'd say that
right.
we've played our best football on the Dykes this season.
Mm,
We have played some decent football at times. But certainly the last few weeks it has, I think, desperation and
yeah,
lack of confidence has kind of led to it being a bit longer, but it certainly isn't the best to watch at the minute.
yeah,
Hopefully that can obviously change, but I think Everton, it's kind of horse of the courses at the minute
yeah.
in terms of what happens. So we're not, I'm certainly not worried about it anyway, put it that way for the time
Yeah.
being. But what
Exactly. You've got to go with what's effective, haven't you? So,
Yeah, I mean, for me, effective football all the way. I mean, I don't care what it looks like so long as you do win games and stuff. But obviously, if we do avoid the unthinkable, then it's certainly something we'd like to improve. Going back to Newcastle, there. I mean,
yeah,
there's probably a few names for you to pick from here, but who would you say has been Newcastle's sort of standout player this season, and who would you sort of say, I mean, slightly harder? Obviously, be very easy. Well, be hard for me as well, to be fair, but in a very different way. Who would you say has been your sort of worst player or maybe most underwhelming? Because
Um,
I couldn't pick anyone myself.
yeah, I mean that's it's probably from the height of expectation, probably Alan St Maximum, but that were basically down to injury. You know, we
Mm,
haven't. I would say it's been disappointing in terms of we haven't got a consistent run of games out of him. He seems to pick up a lot of these muscle injuries, like he's out at the moment. He's one of these players, like I'm sure you guys have seen over the years, where they need 5 or 6 games to get back into the groove, and then when they get in the groove, they're unplayable. But he was getting to that stage, and then he picked up this injury, so he's been, disappointing to if that's kind of the phrase we want to use. But like, um, yeah, he's probably been the only one that I would think, oh, I wish we got more out of him so far this season.
yeah, absolutely. And who would you say has been probably your standout player, your best player this season? Again, I think there's on the flip side, there's probably a few to choose from.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's Joe Linton. Like, I mean, he wasn't in the FIFA team of the season or what, the fans can pick from. He's in the community team, but he's not in the. But
Right, yeah.
he's just been for a guy who, he was mocked universally by every single Newcastle fan. You couldn't find a Newcastle fan 2 years ago who thought he couldn't trap a bag of cement. And then you look at the control he used for the goal against Tottenham, where it comes over the top, and that is crazy. And he's physically changed, his mentality's changed. Well, no, his mentality's always been the same. He's never hidden, to give him credit, but he's just an absolute animal. And he'll play anywhere. He plays sometimes on the left, and he dovetails with Joe Willock really well. Um, Obviously there's Bruno and Botman and those, but for me, Joe Linton he's my best player. He's he's my most important player. He's just unbelievable. He'll probably go and have a nightmare now, but he's been so consistent anywhere he plays in the pitch. So
Yeah. I
and he's
mean,
tough. Yeah, he's tough as well.
I think to be fair, I remember when Newcastle signed him and I'd watched a bit of Hoffenheim the season before, and I remember thinking probably a little bit raw, but I thought he was a good player. I thought he was a good signing, and then obviously very
Yeah,
quickly, I think you saw, and I know he scored at Tottenham early on, didn't he? But
yeah,
after that, obviously he played under Steve Bruce, but I
yeah,
think quite soon after that, I remember thinking this probably isn't going to quite work. But I think, I mean, Everton had a similar sort of renaissance last season with Alex Iwobi, and obviously
yeah,
the bit of history of it. Obviously, it's the game that changed it. Everton time around,
yeah,
it's kind of stalled slightly. He's now playing back on the right. He's not as influential now, so it hasn't been a sort of. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but it's a
yeah,
similar sort of path because he was also. I mean, he was. I tweeted saying he was the worst signing Everton have ever made, and I'm sure Joelinton for the money he cost was probably
yeah.
of a
He was
similar
he was up
ilk.
there,
Yeah,
definitely up there. We've had some
definitely.
shite, but he was definitely up there.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think as well, no matter who you support, I do love seeing someone reinvent themselves, go into a
Yeah,
different position, and do really well. And I love a combative midfielder. And I
yeah.
remember the game last season, which was the maddest game football I ever watched. Obviously, when the
Oh, it
fella
was
tied himself
bonkers.
to the post, it was just
Yeah,
unbelievable. But I remember thinking, 'cause I remember Dan Burn, I think Dan Burn might have played centre back that game. I can't quite
yeah,
remember. He played, I think he might have, yeah, and he was, and I remember just thinking, any cross that goes in, he's headed out, and then any second ball, Joe Linton's won. And I remember just thinking the
yeah,
whole game, we can't get through because these two are just, and I know Dan Burn will be up there as well for one of your better players of the season.
yeah,
But yeah, I think Joneson's been excellent.
yeah. He's been amazing. He's been absolutely amazing.
Excellent. So I mean, talking about the actual game itself, then, obviously we both need the points for different reasons.
Yeah,
Very frustrating that's on a Thursday night. I think it's the Amazon stuff, but it's one of them. Is there anyone in the Everton ranks that you're potentially slightly wary of? Obviously, I think a couple of um, a couple of players are potentially coming back for Everton, Decore, Onana,
yeah.
maybe. So I think we're going to be close to our full strength team. But is there anyone that you're potentially worried about?
Yeah, I mean, I think I said this last time we played as well. I think Calvert-Lewin was he was coming back to fitness, and I'm always wary of him because he take his injuries away, and I know that's part of his character, unfortunately, but he is a quality striker, and he's got a decent record against us until he's kind of hit this sticky patch with injury. So he's a player that I'm always wary of. I do like Anana and Decore, but I think sometimes from seeing him at Watford and occasional games I've seen him for Everton, he sometimes goes missing a little bit. If he's not, if it's not, he's not up for it. But Onana looks like a real quality. He does look like a good player. I mean, I don't know what you think about him, but then McNeil is it McNeil who plays sort of behind? He's he's I think we were linked with him years ago when he played for Burnley, and I think he's got something. But yeah, I would always Calvert-Lewin come back into fitness, and then he's kind of like the main one, I would think, right? But if you go with one up front, then is he going to be as effective? I don't know how long is he going to last in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think I did look the other day, and I think his best record is against Palace and Newcastle. I think he's got 5 goals in like 10 games, I think, which is pretty good. I think Callum Wilson's record against Everton is, even when he goes back, even when he played for Bournemouth, I think is something like 11 and 14 or something stupid like that, something ridiculous. So it's not like I wouldn't say he's kind of, it's not like Newcastle are his team or Palace are his team, but he's got a decent record against them. And I think Evertonians I mean, the sad thing is we are kind of holding our breaths whoever he will be fit. We've not heard otherwise, but obviously you don't know what goes on, obviously, in the week and stuff. But yeah, I think Calvert-Lewin and McNeil are probably the two most dangerous players Everton have got at the minute. Onana is back, I think. Hasn't been pulling up any trees recently, but has seemingly had a bit of an injury. He was been out the last couple of games of that. Hopefully he's back fit. I think the battle between him and Joelinton, to be fair, would be quite good. I think both high energy midfield, bit of class on the ball as well. So that'll be a good battle, I think. How do you see Newcastle lining up? Because I don't know what you're looking like injury wise. I think Fabian Schär might have gone off right at the end of the game last week, but he looked like he'd probably be okay. Think he'll be the same team.
I think Shaw goes off every game. He's always got something going on. There's a head injury or something so that's par for the course as a Newcastle fan. Like if Fabian Schär doesn't get an injury or something in the game, then there's something not right. So I wouldn't read too much into that one. But I was actually thinking about, we've got Southampton at the weekend, 3 games in the week, and whether he might take Shaw out and put Lascelles in, to deal with that sort of more direct approach, if that's the way that Everton possibly are going to set up. He's played a few, he's come in a few times this season and actually performed quite well. He came in against Man City and a lot of people were like, oh, bloody hell. But he handled Haaland. I know we got beaten the game, but he actually handled Haaland quite well. And we were very shocked. He brought him in for the Liverpool game earlier on the season and he played really well. So he might come in possibly, but I think Eddie Howe does like to change a winning team. I think he might put, although Isak is ridiculous, like we've got a great player on my hands there, but I think he might bring Wilson back in. I think he likes Wilson. He knows, like you say about Wilson's record. He did the same against West Ham.
Wilson likes us, absolutely.
Wilson's got a good record against West Ham. He's got a good record, and he's a bit of a shithouse, if I can swear. And that might, he's good at winding opposition players up, and particularly, I know there's kind of the tension that you'll have in that stadium because of the perilous position. We've been there many times, and if you've got a striker up front who's like taking time over things, trying to win little cheeky free kicks and just being annoying, it can really wind those.
It's winding me up now just thinking about it.
So I think you might go with Wilson up top, but if you went with Isak, then great. But I think, given the atmosphere, it's going to be a proper old-fashioned English game, and I don't think Everton will be as open as Tottenham were. So I think you might go with Wilson, and I think you'll keep Murphy. You kind of drop him after 2 goals, and again Gordon. I think you play Joe Willock Bruno and Longstaff in midfield with Willock and Joe Lynn kind of swapping that side, that left flank position, just depending on how the game's going, you know.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think I would have struggled to see him make any changes. I mean, you say that obviously Everton won't be as open as Tottenham. I'm not sure my six-a-side team were as open as Tottenham were on the weekend. To be fair, it was
Unbelievable.
I missed the first 20 minutes. And
So
I got
did
in and
so
saw it
did
was
most of
five
the
0.
Tottenham players, unfortunately for them. Honestly, it was
Absolutely.
it was bonkers. Just
Disaster. I mean,
crazy.
I'm sure. I know Chelsea living in Canada at the minute. I'm sure the atmosphere it looked really good
Yeah,
on the weekend. It's funny because I was saying, obviously, Villa played very well the other week.
yeah.
Thought probably deservedly won the game, and then I was saying to my dad, I was like, they've got Tottenham on the weekend, and I know Tottenham are a bit flaky, but if they could do something there, and they come in about a
Mm,
couple of games without winning, but that was they
yeah,
put paid to that within about 9 minutes, I think. So
yeah. It was a crazy. I think the Villa game was, not one to make. I think a lot of the players just had an off day, and it was at the end of 3 games in 10 days, and because of the high intensity that we play, Villa just hit like we did with Tottenham, and we just never really, they hit the post in the first 30 seconds, and we never really recovered from that. And that's the thing I think Eddie Howe will be conscious of at Everton. If the Everton fans have the heckles up and it's a big atmosphere, despite we play in a good atmosphere regularly, it's a different type of feeling. Like it's a
yeah,
more neggy, like it's an angry, pissed off, and it's all directed on the pitch. And I think if we cope with that for the first 10, 15 minutes, then I think the Everton fans will get frustrated, and then you got more chance of them turning on their own team rather than sticking it into us, So I think that's what we've just got to be mindful of in the start of that game.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not. It's one of them. I think if it was like, if this game was reversed and Everton going in for the top four, it would be another really horrible atmosphere. But it'd be like a nice atmosphere. Like
Yeah,
I could enjoy how horrible it was. But I mean, yeah, we'll see how it goes. Anyway, I'm
yeah.
I'm getting shivers thinking about it, to be honest with you. But we'll just finish off last couple of questions then, Roger. How would you see the game going? What would be your score prediction?
Um, Caveat of if, obviously, but I think if we can get through that first, I think Everton have got to start fast and they've got to really bring the intensity straight away and really push us like Villa did. I think if we can get through that first 10, 15 minutes, like onslaught that I'm expecting, then really, you know, given the quality on show, like we should have enough to win the game. And I think we haven't had many clean sheets recently. The last one was against Man United, so we have been conceding goals. But I'm going to go 2-0 to Newcastle on Thursday. That's what I'm hoping for anyway, and just keep our momentum going. But to be fair, I would take a draw if we look at the Southampton game coming up at the weekend. If we can get 4 points from these 2 games, then I'd be like, right, that just keeps us going. It's a tricky place to go, Everton, historically for us. So I would take a ones each, but I'm gonna be brave and say 2-0, and I'm sure the comments will come calling when if it doesn't quite go that way.
No, I'm sure they'd just be too happy to get involved or anything like that if that does happen. But we will see. Just fine. Then a couple of off-topic questions like to end on that. Obviously, tomorrow there's a massive game in the Premier League. City playing Arsenal.
Yeah.
Who do you think is going to end up winning the league? Do you think?
Um, for a bit of variety, I would like Arsenal to win, but then I find Arteta really, really annoying. But
Mhm.
yeah, I've got like a few of my good pals are Arsenal fans. So I'm like, yeah, I think it just for just somebody different to win the league. It's boring if it's Man City all the time, and there's like I love Saka. He's a great player. Seems like a
Yeah.
really good person. So and like Odegaard, he had that big launch when he was younger, and then he kind of went through like a bit of a weird period where he was playing in the Dutch league and then back at Real Madrid, and then he kind of lost his way, and then he's firing at Arsenal. So I think I would prefer Arsenal to win the league than the Man City, but as long as we get top four, I couldn't give a monkeys.
Yeah, I think that's another one that's had things. I'm really not bothered, so long as we stay up. And
Yeah.
then just finally, I saw this one. I was quite pleased with this one. I think two Northern fellas. I think this would go a long way. What is your go-to or your favorite takeaway order?
Ooh, favorite takeaway order. Actually,
Toughest
I like
question all
a
afternoon. That
you what?
toughest question all
It
afternoon.
is
I
high,
think.
you know. Well, I like a beef masa man or a lamb masa man Thai.
Right.
I like Thai food.
Hmm.
Over here they've got something called poutine, which is basically
Yeah.
gravy and chips, which is absolutely ridiculous. So
Yeah.
I'm
Absolutely. I do enjoy a good poutine. It's very nice indeed.
nice.
Excellent. Good stuff then, Roger. Thanks very much. That obviously the game's going to happen on Thursday. Both teams going to need results for different reasons, as we mentioned. But I'm sure, to be fair, based on what we talked today, I think we've probably got a lot more in common than a lot of Everton and Newcastle fans realise, and maybe we can all get along.
Just the only difference is the purple bins, and that's about it.
Absolutely, for sure, for sure. So, thank you very much for joining us then on Roger on Toffee Blues. And obviously, if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe, drop us a like, and let us know how you think the game's going to go on Thursday. But other than that, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Cheers, thank you.